Started. My name is Dustin and this is Phil, and together we created this little movement. It's called Regale. What we want to do is bring something to the community that's a little outside of the box, not your everyday normal go to the bar or go to a concert. It's just kind of bringing everything together. The theme of this evening is passage, and what we're going to talk about and kind of explore through art, food, wine, beer, and music from PK is we want to look at Arizona and its history of migration and how everyone comes from a different place, and how Jerome was the first billion-dollar mining camp in Arizona, and they brought a lot of people, a lot of migrant workers. So our menu is themed with food that's for the people, and it kind of expresses just the blending of all the different cultures when they came here. Tonight we have David talking from Four-Eight Wine. We'll be going over all of the wine from Four-Eight Wineworks. We got Nathan from Wanderlust Beer. We have Scott from Main Street Cafe. He's over there in the kitchen right now, so you don't have to clap for him.
We can choose for a minute,
but you can. PK Gregory's going to be doing the music. We've got Eddie, who's our sculpturist for this evening. He's going to be talking about his artworks. And representing Sky Black from Flagstaff is Joey. He'll be talking about Sky's artwork. So we invite you guys to have fun, take pictures, post on social media, let everyone know what we're kind of doing here. Start conversations, and just enjoy everything that we're going to do, because we're here to regale you. So with that, I'll introduce Phil, my business partner and cohort, and we'll get it going.
So to kick off the night, and our pieces, in case you haven't seen them around the room, they're kind of situated up in the front here. So if we're sitting down in these areas right here, it might be a little hard to see a couple of them, but bear with us as we use the room here. We're starting off with Irish. The reason why we're starting off with that is because when I think of Ireland, and when most people do, it's a romantic country. It's a very interesting, folklore-rich country as well. And a beautiful piece of art that's suspended above you right there is a really neat steamship. So to me, this particular piece of art encompasses all of the ideals, the whimsical, the fanciful ideals that Ireland possesses, which is so cool, especially with that light hitting it like that. It's freaking amazing. We've tied this particular concept in to our food, first of all, because we have this awesome Irish-inspired art play on fish and chips. And in that, we're using a locally sourced Oak Creek trout. We're using a soda bread kind of crostini cracker underneath. It's a light, it's an airy appetizer for you here as well. It's very reminiscent of waterways, of green, of fresh ideals, which to me is also a little more playful. We're not talking about meat and potatoes for a starter course. What we're talking about is something a little bit lighter, a little bit more fanciful. Our beer that we have selected, and I won't go into deep detail on the beer, but it's freaking awesome, is actually used with a wild yeast. I mean, how playful is that, right? The way that the beer is brewed is off of all natural wild yeast. So it's nothing that's been controlled or tamed. It's something that's been left up to whimsy and to be left up to a fanciful kind of ideal as well. Our wine is very expressive of slate notes, of wet rock notes. It's very floral as well, so it's a very aromatic wine in there as well. And then when we get to the music component of this particular course, or movement, if you will, we'll talk a little bit more about those kind of fanciful ideals as we get there. But take a minute, take a look at the art here. How the layout for each movement is going to go is we're going to start with the art always. So there's 4 pieces of art, so get ready for that. And our first one is this beautiful steamship right there. So without further ado, Eddie, take it away.
Hi, this is my steam airship. It's done in a style that's a lot of people have heard about lately. Steampunk, which is kind of a alternate reality, well, basically a Victorian alternate reality. If they say if certain things weren't invented, like aluminum and and titanium and things like that, what would we make everything out of? How would our world be different? If the internal combustion engine had never been invented, what would we use? We'd use steam still. So this is kind of a sub movement of people that dress up and they actually like think that they have mechanical things and that's steam powered, and it's really fun. I kind of got into it a few years ago and did some of these airships. There was no plan, there's no drawing. It's all found objects. Like the wings are from like a geisha's fan, that I took apart, and different lamps and bundt cake containers and whatever, Tried to stick with the copper and the brass and the more natural things, which kind of dictates that. Sewed the balloon. That's one of the only times I would have been sewing machine. That's made out of rubber and filled with balls.
Take it easy, Cody.
It's a fun piece that I've shown all over the country, actually, and always people are very happy when they see it, and just kind of invokes happiness. A lot of my stuff is scary, so this is one of my happy ones.
It almost looks like to me like it came out of some kind of like anime or something, where there's these fanciful ideals, this playful nature.
Not always, but a lot of times when I make something, one of the biggest questions I get asked is, do you draw it first? And sometimes I do, but most of the times I don't draw anything. I just kind of start doing it. But I have this kind of this movie or like epic book or whatever that I write in my head, as I'm doing it. Because sometimes these things will take months and months. I've had ones that have taken 9 months. And when you sit and do something 8 hours a day for 9 months, you're in your brain so badly, and you've kind of like fallen into this. It's like make-believe, like when you're a kid and you were like zooming and something around your, just for months though, I think, and that's what happens, But actually, yesterday I ripped this whole entire thing apart and redid it completely.
Oh my gosh.
It's total base elements to clean it and put it all back together right. And it's a lot of work, It took actually 2 days to do it. But everything was already made, so it all went back together real easy. But yeah, and I put it back together exactly the way that it was. I didn't change not one thing. Because once it's been made, it's almost like I'm almost stuck sometimes because I'm like, it has to go back together like that. But then I'm like, wait a minute, I did this, I made it. I can do whatever I want, But there's pictures been taken of it, so it still looks like it did this the day that it was made. So. But very cool.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hopefully by now we've made it around with the wines. So I'm going to ask Dave to speak just a second about the wines here that were passed around to you.
Yeah.
So welcome, Dave.
Hi, everybody. So, the white that you have now, hopefully we're not still drinking rosé, is the Lumiere. It's a Grenache Blanc, Viognier blend, a solid 90% or so Grenache Blanc. Vineyard on this, it's all fruit from Paso. It's done by Tim White of Iniqua Cellars, who, if you've ever had the pleasure of meeting Tim White, that's about as much information you're going to get out of him about his wine. But I think one thing that's nice about his wines is that they don't really take a lot of explanation. They kind of speak for themselves. So take a minute, think about it, enjoy it, and if you hate it, we'll drink it. So.
Did you even ask him if he was going to box?
Oh, I did.
Just for fun?
No, that was him. He already came and left.
Oh, okay.
Just kidding. So now that you have your first two components with you, right? You have the piece of art and then you have the wine. Especially this Grenache Blanc. Grenache Blanc is also a very aromatic varietal. It's known for those very neat floral aromatics on there. And again, you know, I don't know if you've taken the hot air balloon, you know, keeping it local as well too. If you get up in the hot air balloon, you take in the valley, what we have here is the water, right? We're green. People think of Arizona as the desert, and it's like there's a big difference between desert and then high desert here, right? So as you're looking over our entire valley here and you're smelling this wine, to me, it's very reminiscent, again, of like an airship, you know? Again, whimsical, right? We're not grounded. This isn't flinty, like, you know, huge, chalky mineral tannin or anything like that in the finish. It's a very light white, which is very cool. So kind of that's what, you know, I want you to kind of key in on a little bit as we go through the night and how these concepts are brought together. So as we talk about that, let's move into the beer portion here as well. So this is Nathan, everybody. Awesome. Welcome, Nathan.
Thank you. So you don't have the beers quite yet. I think they might be starting around here in a minute, but I'm from Wanderlust Brewing Company, and we're a very small brewery up in Flagstaff. I started the brewery about 2.5 years ago with the intention of really taking an eye towards local ingredients and a very traditional Belgian style of brewing beers. And so the first beer that's coming out is called the 928 Local. The 928 is our area code up in Flagstaff and down in this area as well. And it really evokes something local, and not just with the name, but this beer is actually, as was alluded to before, a locally produced beer. Back in the day when beer was first brewed, no one knew that there were these organisms called yeast that were actually turning all of these sugars into alcohol and into carbon dioxide. And they would just leave this beer out, and all of a sudden it would ferment. And it was because of all the yeast that was in the air. So what we did is we went out and we actually collected apples from all over Flagstaff about 5 years ago, and we pressed cider out of those apples. And as many of you know, in the wine world, this is very common. We let them spontaneously ferment. And then we took the yeast that fermented off of that cider, and we pulled it out and we cultured it, and we basically separated it and said, what do we really have in here with these local yeasts? And that yeast has become our house yeast. There's nowhere else in the world that you will taste a beer that is anything like this, because Wanderlust Brewing Company is the only brewery in the world that uses this yeast, and it's something that is local from Flagstaff. The other element of this beer is that we actually use locally produced honey as well from Mountaintop Honey. Belgian beers very traditionally will use something that is a very simple sugar, like a honey or even an invert sugar or even a common table sugar, in order to increase the alcohol of the beer, but keep a very nice light mouthfeel. So this is not syrupy. It has a little sweetness, a little floral aroma to it, but it's by no means coating your mouth. It keeps it very light, very crisp. And I'll tell you that this is actually an 8% alcohol beer, but it tastes nothing like that, which kind of catches people off guard sometimes. But it's a very traditional way of brewing beer from Belgium and from a lot of other places in the world, and we really enjoy using those local ingredients and playing around with kind of what's around us, and not just taking things that we kind of find and throwing them in the beer, but really doing it with a sense of purpose to really craft these beers in a way that really speaks to where it comes from. So this is our beer, the 928 Local. This is really our flagship beer. It was something that I brewed personally because I enjoyed it, and said I don't really even care if anybody likes it, because I do and I love it, and it is by far our best-selling beer, and it's really the beer that's kind of become what we're known for. And you'll taste a lot of our other ones and a lot of other styles that we do as well, but this is really the core of kind of what we're all about at Wanderlust up in Flagstaff. Thank you.
So now I'll turn your attention to the back corner over here.
I actually was,
Right here, actually.
I want to stand up here
Beautiful.
to talk
Get out of the shadows, BK. Get out of the shadows.
because it makes me feel powerful.
Go with it. Go with it.
So Eddie and I were talking a little earlier, and I don't think you touched on this when you were talking, but you said something really interesting about this airship, and it is that an airship is something that has never actually been built on a practical scale to transport people or anything, but when you say airship to somebody, they go, oh yeah, airship, yeah, everybody knows what this is, right? You look at it and you're like, airship. It's not a mechanical moth or, you know, whatever, a bomb. It looks like something Madonna might have worn back in the 80s. But so anyway, it's a completely whimsical and fantastical piece, and I think it speaks to me to the very nature of inspiration, and I think that this relates to anybody that creates. Inspiration is a really ephemeral thing, and you never know when it's going to hit you, and you never know if it's ever coming back. And so it's kind of scary being an artist, being a creator, because, you know, I feel this. I've been writing songs for whatever. I mean, I'm not going to reveal how old I am, but since I was a kid. And every time I finish writing a song, a couple of days will pass, and I'll start to get this anxiety, like, oh, I'm never going to write another one again. You know, I'm done. So I wrote a song a while back, and it's called Isabel. And Isabel was putting a name on the muse for me. So the muse that hits and then leaves and maybe doesn't come at all, her name is Isabel. And the way that song was written was exactly like what I'm describing. It's the way inspiration strikes. I had brushed my teeth, and I was just a normal night, and I was going to bed, and I was walking to the bedroom, and I put my hand on the door handle and pushed it down, and then just let it go and turned around and walked to my studio and picked up my guitar and wrote this song. Because as soon as I put my hand on the handle, the song just sprang into my head. It was weird. And so I want to play the song, and just I guess that's it. Isabel is a muse. It relates to this somehow. Madonna's bra, mechanical butterflies, and Jules Verne. So.
Like, while PK's walking back there too, like what he's talking about right there with the whole Madonna's bra thing, the funnest thing to me that happens at these events is taking this crazy inspiration. Like when somebody else says something, I never looked at this and thought like Madonna's bra. Now all of a sudden I can't think of anything but Madonna's bra. So thank you for that. That was freaking awesome, and it's part of the fun of doing these. So enjoy.
Thank you. I gotta put that on my website.
There you go.
Oh. Turn the guitar on, PK. I don't know why I listened to Isabel. When I was only a child, I was cast in her spell. She would lift me like a cloud, far away to realms where everything's allowed, till I fell asleep on her breast. I am blind as I can be. Isabel, you are mine and I am me. Now many times she would pass me within a dream. She played her song and she sang to me soft, soft and sweet, and I listened for the words, so to claim and capture everything I heard, till I bent her will to my game. Isabel, I am blind as I can be. Isabel, you are mine and I am me. And darkness falls on me. For 30 years, her tracks under my sleeve.
have passed since that first caress. I wonder now, does she love me still, more or less? So I sing for my estate, and I pray her tongue to hurry up and wait while I ink my pen in the stream. Isabel, I am blind as I can be. Isabel, you are mine and I am me. Isabel, in your prison I am free. Isabel, you are mine and I am me.
That we have one more part, which is what you're consuming right now, which is the food aspect, which for some of us could be the most important aspect. What we're going to do is Scott is running double duty here, prepping all the plates, and then he's going to come over and talk for just a second. And without further ado, there's the man of the hour.
So this is our Irish-inspired dish. This is sort of a contemporary fish and chips. This is smoked trout with some goat cheese, some reconstituted cherries in the Kindred wine. The chips are sort of a deep fried green onion, a little bit of panko and a little bit of flour on those. And Irish soda bread is the crostini. The pairing. The trout. The trout is actually locally sourced. That is Oak Creek trout. We'll go through a lot of locally sourced food tonight. Unfortunately, Ireland is a little bit different climate than Arizona, so there's not a lot of locally sourced Irish food around here. But the soda bread was made locally. The Grenache Blanc. Yeah, the Grenache Blanc with the trout, kind of the smoked trout, the smokiness of the trout we thought worked really well. And also the goat cheese, the creaminess of the goat cheese as well worked really well with that wine. Oh yeah, the wild yeast. Yeah, the wild yeast with the goat cheese and the smokiness of the trout. And then also kind of the texture and the crispiness of the deep fried scallion we thought went really well together. And then the soda bread, sort of the acidity of the bread actually worked really well with that beer as well.
It was delicious.
So I'll let you digest that for just a second. And it's kind of fun, you know, seeing an ideal that we're painting for you. You'll get 4 different aspects tonight. So this one is obviously, we've said the word fanciful probably 1,000 times, and that's kind of beating home this ideal that we have. Our opener should be one of a little bit more whimsy, one that has kind of some different connections that you might not have ever had before. Typically in pairings, you have the safe mode, right? Where you go there and it's like, I want a nice rare steak and I want my Cabernet Sauvignon, right? That's been done umpteen thousand times, and what we're trying to accomplish is a bigger concept, a bigger ideal, and to show you that it doesn't have to be that serious on the outset, but you know we put a whole lot of fucking work into it. And I'm going to swear a couple times tonight, because that's just what I do. But you will see that. I mean, you will get a little bit of that conviction and a little bit of that passion expressed in very fun, very apparent ways when you think outside of the box for a second, which is pretty cool. So getting into our next movement here, our next movement is going to take us to Mexico, or in our case, to Patio Town. Now, we're going away from a bit of the whimsy that was the Irish pairing, and we're coming down into a very hardworking, very salt of the earth kind of people. Now, Tatio Town, if you didn't know, is down out by the smelter.
Yes.
And it was a Mexican community down there that was incredibly important. It housed so many people that worked in the mines, that work, you know, literally like these salt of the earth kind of people down there. They might not have had a lot of money, but they were incredibly passionate people as well. So moving on from the airship, we're going to be focusing in on a very cool piece, very small over here in comparison to something as grandiose as an airship. But this one is made out of a lot of very dark metals, right? To me, this is what I thought of like when I first moved here, the iron oxide that permeates all of our hillsides, the mountains out here. To me, I saw this and I immediately thought, oh my God, these are like the red iron oxide rocks that we have here. To me, this encompasses the minerals that we have out here. So these very bold, very dark, very in-your-face, kind of maybe harsher on the outside ideals, but so important to industry, which is what I saw in this particular piece here. I saw a very industrious elephant. Now, the name of this piece is friggin' awesome. The name of this piece is Stampy, right? Like Stampy the elephant, which is really cool. And I love that. I love that about this, where you take something that's this harsh, this angular, but then you have this kind of really cool play on that particular ideal. Also, elephants are migratory animals, which our theme of migration and passage works so well conceptually with this particular piece. That's a super easy tie-in. Also, where they went to was water, right? They're continuously migrating to find that next water source. And what do we have here? You're coming home. You're making this your camp because of the Verde River, right? Because of how rich and teeming with wildlife that we have here, and flora, fauna, everything. And so even though this is a very angular and very awesome, very impassioned piece, it also has a very real concept behind it, you know, if you think about it in terms of what this is representing. So our dishes for this, we have a very traditional corn tortilla carnitas dish, right? Which is also more savory, right? We had the kind of the fun, fanciful fish to start out with. Now we're getting into that savory, that really nice, really rich, very fatty, deep fried pork. I mean, who doesn't love that? It's freaking amazing. Also, our pairings for this one, we have a very working man's pale ale, which is cool. We have a Belgian-style pale ale that we're going to be pairing with this, which to me is like when you say you drink your like lunch or you drink your supper. That's what you do. You take these big, hearty, you know, very savory beers, right, which are going to last on your palate for a very long time, right, because it's refreshing you, but it's also filling you up, which is awesome. It's like drinking your daily bread, right, which is kind of fun. Not to get all religious on you, but it's.
I don't mind.
Of course, that's awesome. But then for our wine pairing for this, we wanted to kind of play into the fanciful nature that this had and to make that kind of correlation in between our two movements. And this is actually going to be another white wine, which is going to be kind of crazy. So we're going outside the box here. We're pairing a really neat, very savory pork with a white wine, because what we're trying to do for that pairing is to incorporate a little bit more of the acid, so that richness isn't going to fill you up because you're only on your second course. We don't want to hammer you too hard to start off here. But that interplay of flavors, I think, is well represented by this elephant here, where it's stern, it has this dark color to it, these angular components, but the overall picture, this is a pretty happy elephant. You know, it's not stampeding anywhere. It's not like a circus elephant and fuck all that shit. This right here is a very free, very wild female elephant to me, coming home to the Verde River. So enjoy it, take a look here, and let's get these.
Well, probably a big percentage of my work has this spinal element in it. I think the spines are really beautiful and cool looking, fun to make for some reason. I don't know why. But everything I make typically has a spine and, you know, made people and animals and whatever. It's always kind of a play on this biomechanical, you know, back and forth. Is it mechanical or is it biological? You know, is it mechanical pieces that are set up in a biological way? Sometimes I do it the other way around, where I do mechanical pieces that look, or biological pieces that look like they could be mechanical with a carving technique that I do. But anyway, they typically have always been really scary. This was like one of the first ones that I did that wasn't, that could have the spine and still be a skeleton, and people wouldn't really be turned off that it was a skeleton, you know, because it's strange, you know, these are just pieces of metal that are put together and they may look like a skeleton. If it looks like a skeleton, it's really scary. People are really afraid of it. Skulls, you know, and my response is, you know, you've got one, I've got one, there's like 20 in this room. They're just covered with flesh, you know, so you never see the inside, and when you do, you know, the person's passed on, so it's sad. But it's more about the structure, the beauty and the function of both things, of the mechanical, of the mechanics of our biology, and then also mechanics, you know. And I mean, if you look at a car, you know, and a car is, I mean, that's a personified thing if there ever was one, you know. I mean, it has to eat, it has to breathe, it has a circulatory system, a cooling system, you know, I mean, everything that we have, basically, our car has. We've made that in our image, you know, I mean, and there's pieces of cars that you can take apart and they look like our things, you know, and it's really strange when you get really into it. But that's my inspiration for this one. And to also kind of, I always thought it was amazing when an elephant does this positioning, because it doesn't look like it's so big, it doesn't look like it should be able to do that. You know, it's so balanced, you know, that it literally will stand up like this, and it's, you know, because of its offset weight, it can do this. Such a big, heavy animal doing something that's pretty, you know, it takes a lot of balance, I would think, to be that heavy and do something like that. So, I think that's all I've got on it.
One thing too, which is kind of a cool tie-in that I totally missed, because we kind of have a lot going on. That's my excuse. But it can't be overlooked, and Cindy just brought this to my attention too. This is a literal representation of what was actually found here too. At the Historical Society, we have actually pictures and, you know, the little impressions of mastodon fossils that were pulled out of right here, which is absolutely crazy. So this is literal to what was right here, which is very beautiful. And I totally failed in my duties of expressing that earlier, but it's a beautiful, beautiful tie-in as well. So it's neat when things like that happen as well. When you're picking out pieces of art, you know, Eddie couldn't have known that. Definitely fun. Let me see if Dave's ready for the next kind of spiel here. Dave, I think you're on.
It's the American Vineyard Shinola Bianca. Really neat wine. I mean, I think it's 76% Malvasia Bianca, 24% Moscato, and I'm a big believer in the Malvasia varietal. So is Cody.
Yep.
Get an earful, talk to Cody about it. But Malvasia Bianca, I think, really is the grape for the Southwest in and of itself, and it's something that I think we'll all get a little bit more familiar with as the Arizona wine industry starts to boom a little bit more. Very floral, really aromatic. I think it's going to go well with this next piece. The fruit comes from the Luna Rosa Vineyard out of Luna County, New Mexico, which it's always good for us to keep those relationships alive. I mean, we're growing a lot of grapes here in Arizona, but we've got other obstacles that come our way as well. And so having that friendship over in New Mexico, it's going to keep us moving. So take a minute, enjoy it, and look what our neighbors to the southeast of us are doing. Enjoy, guys.
So without further ado, here's Nathan one more time.
So the next beer you're going to be enjoying is the Chateau Americana, which is a Belgian-style pale ale. And it's kind of an interesting style because a lot of the beers that we brew at Wanderlust really draw influences from a lot of different places. And you know, everybody I think has probably had an American-style pale ale. And what defines an American-style pale ale is something that has these very citrusy, fruity, sometimes piney kind of hop characters to them. And a lot of them are very dry. They don't have a lot of kind of malt backbone to them. One of the things that I really love about Belgian beers, and one of the reasons that I think they really influence a lot of what we do, is they have this amazing sense of balance in their beers. Whereas here in the US, we like to take one aspect of a beer and just run as far as we can with that. If we're going to make a hoppy beer, we're going to make a hoppy beer, and you're going to know it. You're going to know it from 20 feet away. But if you taste a beer from Belgium that is considered a hoppy beer, it has this amazing balance to it, where it has this malt character that really interplays with the bitterness of the hops. And that's really what we looked at when we were making this beer. So you'll taste some of that citrusiness, you'll taste some of the kind of like orange and a little bit of grapefruit note from the American style hops that we use in here. But it has this really nice biscuity malt backbone to it. We actually use a malt that's called a Belgian biscuit malt. A lot of people get graham cracker out of it, but I think what it does is it gives a little sweetness to this beer, and it really balances the beer well. It's kind of cliche, but this is what I always refer to as kind of our pizza and burger beer, because it really goes with those really hearty, like kind of comfort foods that we all enjoy, you know, a nice greasy food, because it'll cut through that, and those hops will really kind of clear your palate for the next course. Whereas the malt still gives you a little bit of backbone so that you don't just taste this kind of watery beer. You know, one of the things that I always think is very interesting is looking at all these beer styles from all over the place, and I think it really plays into this kind of Mexican theme, that if you think about some of the quintessential Mexican beers that we drink here in the US, my favorite example of this is Negro Modelo. It's a great beer. The style of that beer is actually a Vienna lager. There were immigrants who came over and they brought this style with them from the continental European countries. And the Mexicans embraced this, and that's really what influenced their beers. And so one of these beers that we think of as kind of a quintessential Mexican beer, we put a lime on it, you know, you drink it on Cinco de Mayo and everything like that, is really has its roots in kind of these continental styles from Europe. And I think that's something that we forget a lot of times, is that even though we associate a certain drink or a certain food with a certain culture, they don't exist in isolation. They really exist in this way that draws influences from kind of all over the world and from all of the people who influenced that in the history. And I really feel like it kind of gives these beers and these foods and these wines a real good kind of sense of history in this glass that you're drinking. And so I hope that what you kind of get from this beer is maybe some influences from the American style pale ales that we taste day in and day out, that are very, you know, kind of ubiquitous around us. You know, every brewery has an American pale ale now. But you also get a little bit of that sense of that kind of history that comes from that Belgian and that continental influence, and that really interplays really well. So I hope you enjoy it.
By the fact that I find your elephant actually really terrifying. I mean, it's welded together out of decommissioned military industrial detritus, and it's reared up like it's going to crush us all if we were very tiny. But imagine if it was a real elephant. That would be horrifying. So, back in 2008, I got really caught up in the economic crash, and I lost a lot of money, and I was very obviously a little depressed and very down on the whole bailout that happened of the big banks and the automakers, and I was wondering where my fucking bailout was when it was gonna come. There's a silver lining to that, of course, because it got me back into doing music full time. So there's a huge silver lining. But I wrote a song at that time, and it's very anti-establishment, and it's called "People Like Us," and it is written for the little people, you know. And the chorus is, "They've got a name for people like us," and I never say what the name is because you can fill in the blank yourself. But I think about this piece, you know, we're talking about the Mexican laborers, the people that came in and they built this town, and they built the mine, and they made a lot of money for the people that own the mine, but I don't know if it ended them up in a very good place. They were basically crushed under the weight of their own labors. So, I mean, that's kind of like the anti-establishment, very depressing view. This song also has a little bit of a whimsical character to it, so it's not going to be completely depressing.
Look at all those pretty ponies, Arliss, pretty polished ponies in a row. See them marching in battalions, pretty ponies in a rodeo. It's all about show while the missiles fly. The happy people shopping, watch them shop their wallets to the nub. See their blank and blissed expressions bitten by a plastic potent bug. But there's the raw, it's a poison pack. They've got a name, they've got a name, they've got a name for people like us. They've got a name, oh, they've got a name, they've got a name for people like us. Television, paint by numbers, all good children hypnotized at birth. It's a sanitary wonder, free those children from their human curse. But what's it all worth, so you can make your tea time? 'Cause they've got a name, they've got a name, they've got a name for people like us. They've got a name, oh, they've got a name, they've got a name for people like us. What was that word now? I forget. Too busy buying more useless shit. My Jesus poster on the wall tells me it's time to go back to the mall. Coming revolution, coming to our senses one by one. Hippies running free and naked, credit cards all melting in the sun. It sounds like fun right before we're all gunned down. 'Cause they've got a name, they've got got a name. Oh, they've got a name. They've got a name for people like us.
Nice. So you had the food in front of you, so obviously it didn't suck. Obviously it was delicious.
It was amazing.
Good. With this one, I'm going to stall just a little bit while Scott's running back over to talk about this particular course. The really neat thing with this one, when we were talking about the wine a little bit and I was doing the little intro spiel, this carnitas dish has a little bit of that green chili, right, which is very synonymous with the Southwest and Arizona in particular as well. And that little hit of green chili, I think, is really what sets this dish off. Because if it lacked that component, there was nothing for the floral notes, there was nothing for like the wine to kind of dig into, and that really neat Belgian pale ale. That pale ale has just that little bit of astringency on the end of it, which I think matches up beautifully with that little bit of heat, that little bit of roasted green chili, which is phenomenal. And of course, a little bit of fat from the little bit of avocado in there as well. Holy crap, like who doesn't love that, right? That little bit of richness tied into it as well. It's very fresh, and then the little contrast of the crunch of the little topping right there, which has a lot of radish, but a little bit of cabbage in it as well. Like that texturally is a very satisfying thing, because sometimes when I get carnitas, which I love, by the way, if you want to cook me a dish, go ahead and throw me a little bit of carnitas. That's beautiful. But I miss a little bit of that crunch contrast. And so having this, I think, was a brilliant move on Scott's part to kind of give us a little bit of that. And then he also wanted, he was going to talk about the little bit of the corn tortilla, that white corn tortilla, all locally sourced for that as well, which is beautiful. So we love it. And we love him.
Locally sourced pork. This is actually a 4-H kid from Cottonwood that raised this.
Go 4-H!
Processed by Perkinsville Meat Processing, so it's legal to serve on a commercial basis.
He's good at lawyers.
That's smoked with New Mexican red chili and fresh cumin. A little bit of queso fresco on there. Avocado for some fat, for some satiety, and then a slaw is really cool. That actually has, I call them wild Oak Creek apples. They're not wild, they're feral, if you will. They were planted probably 70 years ago. They haven't been taken care of at all, and they still produce amazing fruit. They're a little bit sour, they're kind of back to their natural state. And then also feral Oak Creek plums in that same. Handpicked by yours truly. Oh yeah, the white corn tortilla. I know it says blue corn. That was on my last minute decision.
It's beautiful whatever color it is.
I apologize for that. Yeah, just that's a organic white corn. It's actually white corn and flour tortilla. So it's kind of got a little bit of corn flavor, but flour texture to it, which I thought worked a little bit better with the carnitas. Perfect.
Delicious.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Meat and potatoes of it. I mean, we're all feeling pretty good at this point because you've had a little bit of alcohol and a little bit of food. But if you can, direct your attention this way. We're now going from the sculpture interlude into more of the surrealist painted canvas aspect. We're now migrating to Eastern Europe, which was huge for us here in Clarkdale. We have engineers and designers and these people that came into the mines and set up the infrastructure here, and a great majority of them were Eastern Europeans. So we were calling this our Slavic dish right here. So if you see the little menus that are placed around here, we're going about as classic Slavic as you can possibly do, and we're doing pierogies because we'll do anything, right? This particular course hits home for me as well because this is a very very neat story about the origin of not only wine, but brewing, of peoples as well. When you talk about Eastern Europe and you talk about these big countries, specifically in the wine area, which is my kind of forte, Turkey's where the grapes came from. The earliest recorded must that we have, grape must, comes, believe it or not, from Mount Ararat Caves. And it was recently discovered. So this particular course for us is also taking us home in a very literal manner, where our passions kind of come from, where we pay homage to, is this particular course in this particular place. And it's really neat that they were able to come out here and set up a lot of our infrastructure. So when you talk about Clarkdale, and you talk about the town founding, you're talking about a lot of these peoples who came over here, which is a brilliant connection. And it's one that when I saw this particular piece, I tied in because it took a whole hell of a lot of strength, it took a whole hell of a lot of intensity. And the first thing that you get on this mountain lion piece is this wide open gape, right? These huge teeth. And to me, this is speaking not so much of fear or like anger, but it's more of a passion. And I'm sorry, but if you're going to travel across the country, and in some cases, like these people, across the face of the planet, you're going to need a whole hell of a lot of passion and a whole hell of a lot of strength. And when I saw this piece, I immediately connected with that. Now, the reason why I'm going like not anger on this particular interpretation of this piece is because if you see its body, it's a glass lion, right? So it has this major intensity, but if you get really close to it, I'm sorry that we lost the sunlight, but that's what happens when it turns to night.
Really?
We lost a little bit of the light that kind of illuminated the birds and whatnot that are inside there, but it's very fanciful, and to me, that's the emotion and that's the kind of fanciful nature. Hey, good looking out, I appreciate it.
Woo!
Cell phone flash came into the wind. No, it's beautiful because it has all these intensely beautiful, very light, very winged creatures inside of it. So to me, it's speaking from a place of passion. And you may have noticed, but I can kind of relate to that a little bit. Where, you know, you get a little rambunctious, you get very powerful, but your intentions are very pure. And so I love that about this piece. And that to me is what these Eastern Europeans who came here were invoking. And that was a beautiful thing. And again, tying it into the food aspect, it's pierogies, which on the outside, you'll see them in just a second, they have this really neat kind of crunchy exterior to this little bun. And then inside, it's very soft. You have all these beautiful cheese, potato, and meat qualities to it, which just kind of ooze on your palate, which is what every culture who makes a bun-style dish tries to invoke. Even if you go to Japan and you have their little steamed pork buns and stuff, oh my God, they're absolutely amazing. Right? You bite into them and they're just this soft pocket of flavor. On the outside, you're like, God, this could be intense. And then you get it and you're like, God, it's not. Like the story is very, very smooth. And our beers that we have paired with this are amazing as well. So this is our double IPA. And our double IPA is amazing because on the outset, on the nose, you're like, God, this is going to knock me on my ass. And then you try it and the palate is incredibly smooth. You get a little bit of that pale ale finish to it, so it leaves you with a lingering flavor that you're going to remember it by, which has that little touch of astringency again. That's not a bad word, like it's just a fun complexity note, and that's what we mean. It's a very interesting piece, it's a very interesting beer because of how it finishes, and our wine is no slouch either. This is the Kindred Project, and what a neat wine about bringing us all together. It's exactly what the Kindred wine was entailing and what it's trying to get across to you. So conceptually, this to us is a very safe movement in that everything has very literal translation. So this is the easy bridge between all these different concepts, and you'll taste it, you'll smell it, and hopefully you'll check it out. So enjoy these stories, but their passion will hopefully excite you a little bit. So without a round of applause for Joey.
I want to thank Dustin and Phil, of course, for facilitating this. Unfortunately, Sky couldn't be here. He had a previous engagement that he had to be at, but I'm always helpful to, you know, talk about his work. I'm very passionate about that. And the passage theme works really well for this piece because you've got a mountain lion who, you know, works with the migratory pattern. You've also got the birds that also work with the migratory pattern. And these are two things that are sort of adversarial, a lot like beer and wine sometimes. You know, they don't always go together, but here it's working, you know, and these birds are flying into this lion for God knows why. And this is actually one of his pieces that I call the metaphysical muselings. It's two things that kind of go together that probably shouldn't. And this is a study for a mural that he's working on currently called the Sound of Flight mural. It's on the Orpheum Theater in Flagstaff, and it's a bird-themed mural. So this is kind of an early glimpse of him getting the birds down and starting to work with those concepts. And when you guys are able to come up a little bit closer, there is a really cool little phantom sparrow up here on the right-hand side, which not everyone notices, but I like to point out. It also helps, see how well you're paying attention.
Beautiful.
Of course it's for sale. It is for sale. So if you guys are interested, please, come talk to me. We also have some prints available through his website too. So we're gonna do a little deal for you guys tonight. So if you order something, we'll give you 10% off and then we'll ship it in Arizona for free. So we appreciate what you guys are doing, and we also want to thank David at Four-Eight Wineworks. You guys are doing yeah, it's the Verde River too, again, with the reflective of this local environment. So the Verde River is a riparian, sort of migratory place for them, really a respite. So the birds, as reflective of being, near the water, I think that really ties with the local environment as well.
Well, thank you.
If you guys have any questions, let me know.
Appreciate it.
Cheers.
So hopefully you have enough water. If not, we have a water station over here too. Please make use of that. We'll do our best to kind of come around to you as well, but you're having a lot of wine and beer, so hopefully you can get a little respite over here as well and try a little bit of the water. But I want you to pay attention to the contrast in themes as the white and red are a reflection of as well. So now it's more tannic, you're into that longer brooding finish on this wine as well, and it should be served with a meat and potato kind of a dish, right? That take on the classic American meat and potatoes, right? Which is fun. So we'll do the wine. Dave?
So, what you're about to enjoy is the Kindred Project. It's a pretty special wine for us. So this is really meant to be kind of a chance to have you try the entire state. We don't, Southern Arizona and Northern Arizona both exist, they're both great growing regions, but this is the one opportunity where you get it all in one bottle here. And you've got 4 different winemakers, each one of them contribute 2 barrels of wine, and it all gets blended together to make what you see here. It's a real traditional Rhone blend, 50% Syrah, 25 Grenache, 25 Mourvedre. And it's always going to be a couple, 2 different Southern Arizona winemakers, 2 different Northern Arizona winemakers. The fruit itself, as a lot of us know, most of our fruit's down in Southern Arizona anyway, so that's where a lot of this is sourced from. But you've got Maynard Keenan of Caduceus Cellars contributed 2 barrels. Tim White of Iniquitous Cellars contributed 2 barrels. He also did the Lumiere, which is the first wine with the courses that he did. And you got Kent Callaghan from Southern Arizona, Callaghan Vineyards, and Todd Bostock and Dos Cabezas, which, in my opinion, those are the 4, I don't want to say titans because that sounds really cocky, but they're kind of the heavy hitters in our state right now, and I think they're the ones that are taking this, very seriously, and are doing a really good job of representing our state and the fruit that grows within it. So check out our Kindred Project. Enjoy. Beautiful.
The next beer that you're going to be enjoying this evening is called the Westbound Vagabond. And you've probably got a little bit of a sense that we have kind of a travel, wandering theme here with our brewery. And this beer is really a first for our brewery, and it was several years in the making, actually. This is a double IPA. As many of you know, the IPA is a very, very popular style in the U.S. right now. As I was saying before, here in the U.S., we like to take one aspect of everything and kind of take it to an extreme. And I think the IPAs that we get are really an epitome of that kind of concept. And one of the things I always like to say is the IPAs that you get here in the U.S. can be the absolute best beer you'll ever taste. They can also be the absolute worst beer you'll ever taste. Because what people do with IPAs is they basically just indiscriminately throw hops at them. Hops are where we get the bitterness from our beer. That's what's supposed to be used to kind of counterpoint this malty sweetness. And I think we've lost a little bit of that here in the US with some of these IPAs. And so one of the places where I think they've kind of recaptured that spirit is actually in the Northeast, Vermont, New Hampshire. They're doing a really good job there of taking this kind of concept of balance and really running with it, where they're getting these amazing flavors that you can get in this depth of flavor and this complexity that you see in these IPAs that you're just not getting with some of the West Coast IPAs that are really just kind of made to wreck your palate for no other real purpose. And so, you know, we took that kind of concept because we've never done an IPA before. We're a more Belgian-focused brewery. We like that balance concept, but it's like the #1 question in our tap room is, where's your IPA, and what's your IPA, what's the hoppiest beer you have? And so we spent a couple years actually developing the hop profile that you taste in this beer. And what we've done is we've taken an English malt base, which is traditionally a little sweeter. Again, it has that kind of biscuity character to it, and really counterbalanced that with 12 different kinds of hops that went into this beer. And those 12 different kinds of hops that went into this beer in 14 different time periods. Some of them during the boil, some of them during the mash, some of them during the fermentation, and then some of them after fermentation, to really create this complexity. We used hops from the US, we used hops from England, we used hops from the Czech Republic, and we also used hops from Australia. The Australian hops are really amazing to me because they have a tropical fruit flavor to them, and I really think that's what comes out on the nose of this beer. But when you drink this beer, I kind of mentioned it earlier that our beers can be a little bit dangerous because this is actually a 9% alcohol beer, and it doesn't drink like it. And really, it comes back to that theme of balance. And what we've done with this beer is we've really created something that's not going to overwhelm you, but at the end of the day, is just something completely unique. And so, you know, I encourage you to really take the time to sip on this beer, enjoy the aroma of it. I think that's one of the reasons that I would never serve this beer in a pint glass. You always want a glass, just like a wine glass, that has that kind of intern rim to it, because it really funnels all those amazing aromas that come from this 12 different kinds of hops into your nose, and it gives you that depth and that complexity in this beer, but it's balanced really nicely with the malt. It's really good for this dish. I think it cuts through, you know, kind of that really kind of herby, like meat and potatoes kind of theme with this dish, and it's a really nice kind of palate cleanser rather than a palate wrecker, and that's really what we were going for with this beer. So again, this is the Westbound Vagabond. I hope you all enjoy it.
So up next, PK.
I personally am drinking this beer out of coffee cups. I don't know. Or Dixie cup, whatever. Drink it right out of the spigot. This piece of art has been giving me a tremendous amount of anxiety. More than any of the other ones, I think I kind of sussed out pretty quickly what I wanted to say about everything else. But this one, it's kind of a complex piece. And I wanted to, when I first saw it, I really wanted to reduce it down to it being about sex. And I still think I want to do that. Because everything can be reduced to sex, death, and transcendence. So I'm like, okay, sex. The elephant's definitely about death. This one's about transcendence. So I'm going to stick with that theme. But looking at this lion, I think the lion is also feeling a tremendous amount of anxiety because I think the lion really wants to get the goddamn birds out. And he's not roaring so much as a threat. He's roaring, like pleading with these birds, get out. And when you think about our screwed up, as a society, ideas about sex and sexuality, it kind of makes sense. This lion has something to express, and he's having a hard time expressing it. The birds represent his inner desire that he can't really get out in any other way. So I have this song, and it's on my new record. Oh, by the way, I am too for sale. Coffee cup. So if you want a CD, take a piece of me home with you. But the lion, okay, so the song is called Starlight Motel, and it is probably one of my most outrageous lyrics. It completely goes over the top. And on the surface, it is a story about a man and a woman meeting in a hotel room, Starlight Motel. It may be a kind of a sleazy hotel, right? And at first blush, you might think, well, she's a prostitute, and this man is visiting a prostitute. And I like to think, I actually think that the guy in this song, and the reason why I play this song and I put it on my record is I really think that the guy in this song is kind of a sympathetic character. He may have had a, working class upbringing and a rough life and everything like that, and he's trying to make it work. But the woman that he's meeting is also a sympathetic character, and I think that even if you want to interpret it in a certain way, this woman could be the man's wife, right? And they're playing out a fantasy because they're trying to inject a little spice into their love life.
Yeah.
So they're trying to get the goddamn birds out. Because I think of birds. I really like, people think birds are cute and like nice pets, and I fucking hate birds. They're far more terrifying than a mountain lion, really. They're predatory. They look at me funny. I go over to people's houses that have birds, and their birds look at me weird. They're always circling around like little dinosaurs. I want to get the birds out of me too. So this song is about sex, but it's also about getting something out of you that you need to express. Can I play with your bunny in the romantic light from the TV? Down at the Starlight Motel. I sure want to kiss you and lick on your face, but I'm gonna miss you when you're off someplace with another guy, with another story to tell. And I know that this love sure as shit won't be free, but I get so excited thinking of what it will be. And I know that to you I'm just another hard sell. Yeah, but I know your weakness down at the Starlight Hotel. Well, I'm a man now, I never got far. I got my share of misery, and I got a few scars. Can you kiss them, and then piss on my chest? It's just a request, my old man had problems. He never was much fun. He beat me and my mama, but he left me this gun. It ain't loaded, so don't look so distressed. And I know that this love sure as shit won't be free, but I get so excited thinking what it will be. And I know that to you I'm just another hard sell. Yeah, but I got you tied up down at the Starlight
mustard and rope, and we got more hardcore porn than the Pope. If you wanna know my problem, I'm not gonna lie. If you're looking for trouble, baby, well, I got a supply. But I'm sympathetic, yeah, I got feelings and shit. So if I make you squirm and I make you scream, I'm never gonna hurt you, baby, and I'll never be mean, cause I know you've got a heart too, right there under your tits. And I know that this love sure as shit won't be free, but I get so excited thinking of what it will be. Yeah, but I know your weakness, and you know mine, and all my little secrets down at the Starlight Hotel. One more time.
Pierogies are amazing. They're so delicious.
That's out of context.
Hey, Scott. Pierogies are fucking awesome. Thank you. All right, now
Pros coming!
So the pierogi is actually not my first attempt ever at a pierogi. Thank you guys for having me step outside my traditional potato pierogi, but we did add a little bit of beef and pork to it with some fresh oregano, some Parmesan cheese, some garlic. That's the Italian in me. A little bit of feta cheese, which worked really well with the wine pairing. The wine pairing, which was the kindred. Yeah, the feta worked really well. I tasted a lot of wines that night. Worked really well with the kindred. I hope you guys all had a chance to have some of that fresh oregano that we garnished it with the kindred, because that really made the kindred pop. And then the demi-glaze over the top was actually a reduction of the double IPA and just the traditional beef stuff. So,
trying to incorporate some of the
thank you guys.
a little kind of interlude here between what you have on your plates right now and then the final course, which is our dessert course. So please feel free to ask the artist a little bit of questions or just get up and mingle for a little bit. Consider this the 7th inning stretch. I will also take this opportunity to thank you. So often when I moved out here, this is just a personal note, and thank you for the ass grab on camera, that's awesome. We like to keep each other on our toes, so that's amazing.
That will be posted on the Arizona Wine Monk vlog.
For posterity's sake. Mr. No, sorry. Right, thank you. No, but I want to take this opportunity to say thank you, not just for supporting us, but when I first moved out here, I don't know if many of you know this, but I'm a San Francisco native. I grew up in the Bay Area, was there for 27 years. And one of the biggest things that people would tell me when I moved out here is they said, there's nothing to fucking do out here. And I was like, no, but I mean, this was literally, this is what I was getting. And I was somebody who was a blank canvas for Arizona because I was truly ignorant to what Arizona had to offer because I grew up in a place where I had constant stimulus. And so I never really looked outside the box because I never had to. You know, things were always just offered to me. And so one of the great passions that I have is obviously communicating, but creating new things. I think that's so much fun. And so what you are doing right now is supporting culture, the arts, and institutions that can grow, right? Like, this is that sustainable, impassioned growth. And these are the people that are doing it. So these are people that are my inspiration, right? I don't just assemble people because I'm just like, oh, you know, I need to help this out, or I need to, like, no. This is coming from a place where I think what these guys are doing, and gals, are doing is so interesting. And to me, you know, these are people that I would go and see wherever they are. I would make the trip down to Phoenix to check out Eddie's stuff because I think it's awesome. You know, I'll come over to Main Street Cafe because I like eating there. Like, I think it's cool. You know? And so I want to say thank you to all of our components here, and especially Four-Eight Wineworks for this awesome venue. These badass wines. People who give a shit behind the bar. Like, I love it. I think it's so awesome. And so I just want to say thank you to all of you because without you, I mean, truly this wouldn't happen. But you are creating the scene as well. So you are a piece of the puzzle that's much more than just like a monetary thing. You're making this happen because it gives us a reason to all show up. Yeah. So thank you so very much. Take a little stretch, go back and do whatever you gotta do, and we'll take 5. So thank you. Appreciate it. The harmonica during this little interlude for everybody. This is gonna be our final course. Attention for maybe 30 more minutes. That's all I ask. That's all I ask. During this final course, we wanted to kind of tie together a couple different aspects for you to kind of blow your minds a little bit. Dessert is always my favorite course. I like the play of sweet and savory, and we're going to bring that for you a little bit. We're going to our original roots now. No longer are we going to have an immigrant story. We're talking about the Native Americans who were here first. So one of the traditional kind of fun, like roadside Indian delicacies, if you will, Native American delicacies, is our bastardized fry bread, which is absolutely amazing. It's one of those sinful treats. You may have had them at a carnival near you, you know, that little like pole kind of thing going on, that fried dough, a little bit of you know, powdered sugar on there. With our aspect, we wanted to bring it back to local. So for this, everything in this is absolutely local, which is a beautiful for the fry bread components. What we're trying to bring to you is a story of origin now, and with the Native Americans, we're tying this into a really, really beautiful beer, which is really cool. This beer has this amazing coffee stout quality to it. There's nothing better than vanilla ice cream and coffee fucking stout. Like, that is one of my favorite all-time, like, espresso and ice cream kind of shit going on. Fuck, like, you serve that to me, like, I'm in heaven. So we're gonna bring you our aspect of that. We have a wine which is not gonna be a sweet wine because we don't wanna overpower you with sweet. What we're trying to do is to play upon the components. For us, our favorite pairing is oftentimes a pairing which brings together the components tied together into certain aspects. Like for this one, we have a compote that's over the top of the ice cream. This berry compote is going to play beautifully well with this awesome Syrah. So you'll see it passed around you now. You have this kind of ooey gooey vanilla ice cream over this awesome hot fry bread with this reduction of wild berries, which are cool, which are dipped in sycamore candy, which is very, very awesome. Oak Creek Canyon. Sorry, Oak Creek Canyon for these ones, which is very cool. And prickly pear fruit as well, just to go full on for you. We're playing this into the piece of art over here, which has this awesome, like, mind-blowing kind of aspect to it. Now, we can get really deep with these aspects of this particular painting, but one thing that I keyed upon big time was this kind of like lofty goal of gaining monetary value at all expense. And so to me, these people are losing themselves in this pursuit of money. And so for us, having this awesomely decadent dessert, but trying to pay homage to this Native American culture, I thought this piece right here brought a level of uncomfortability with it because it's so real. I mean, you can take this to a very deep place where it's like, you know what, maybe we should step back for a second. Maybe we should appreciate the past and what we have here natively. And nothing to me is more important than Native American culture and the Verde expanse, which everybody has tried to exist upon. And so for us, we're gonna close it with a neat kind of introspection. While we're having something decadent, we can appreciate some of the pain and the struggle that was, how the fuck do you coexist? How do you bring everything together? And that is a very painful realization, but it doesn't have to be a downer. It gives you a hope for the future, because guess what? We understand it, right? Like we're visualizing it. We're like, okay, how do we make it better? How do we work? How do we coexist? And here we have this big tannic red wine that's trying to exist with this super sweet dessert. And that's fucking awesome. Like, I think that's a really cool, it's like, it can work. It can be a beautiful marriage. And to me, that's exactly what's happening here. So take a minute, make sure you get the beer and the wine. The wine I love with that berry reduction, so try that together. Make sure that you take a little sample of that together. And then when you get that big coffee stout, make sure you're trying that with that awesome ice cream, because to me that's just freaking heaven sent. That's one of the best savory, bitter, sweet, like all aspects. It has that umami flavor with that fry bread as well, which is just, I mean, it's perfect. It's like heaven on a fucking plate. So enjoy, and we love you guys. Appreciate it.
Sure. Bang!
So Joey, for the last time. Woo.
Thanks again. Hey, Scott, unassuming, but he crushes it. Appreciate it. It's delicious. So, I got a chance to try the Kindred last weekend, and it's delicious. And it's slightly explosive. It hits you back here a little bit. And that's a little reflective of this piece. This is a newer piece by Sky. It's called The Men Who Sell the World. And it's interesting because it's kind of his foray into this pop surrealism that he hasn't really done yet. And for me, it's new because I have to shift what I know about his work. And but the bang, you know, guys go right to the bed, right? Then they migrate over to Maryland. You know, and her as this sort of, you know, vixenist, she's got her hands on the chart and they all blow up. But they're still concerned. You know, why are they concerned? Their heads are blown up. But they're still trying to sell the world. And like Phil and I were talking about, you know, this being one of the largest copper mines in the country at one time. You know, you had a lot of these people that weren't vested here. They came and they extracted resources out, and they were trying to sell the world. So, looking at that from a reflective of this environment to the theme that he's going with, it fits really well. You know, a lot of times we don't always know who signs our check, but it's nice to know when we do. It's explosive. But like dessert, it's always on time.
So far throughout the night, we've seen some stuff from Paso, the fruit anyway from Paso. We've gone to New Mexico, came back to Arizona with the Kindred project. Now we can go, you know, as local if you want. We've got Michael Pierce here is the Saculum Cellar Syrah, which is this last wine that we have here. He lives right here in Clarkdale. He teaches our science of winemaking courses at Yavapai College. He's the only one of our tenant winemakers that has his own vineyard down in southern Arizona. And with that, all of his wines now come from the Rolling View Vineyard. It's a really, really nice site. He's really taken this industry by storm. And enjoy this stuff. You'll always find it here. It's also kind of all over the state too. He's done a good job of self-distribution, so it's out at a lot of restaurants now as well. Phil kind of talked about all of the notes we want for this, and it looks like we're digging in, so get at it. Enjoy.
So I'm curious about this. I have not heard Nathan's story at all about these, so that was all my own opinion, so I'm really excited about this.
No, it's great, and it's interesting too to me because as you guys may or may not have noticed, I've been drinking the beers but haven't been drinking the wines with each of these courses, and it's not for lack of liking them, it's because I need to be able to get home at some point. But I am having the wine with this course, and I think it really kind of speaks to a little bit of where I grew up and what my kind of childhood and like early adulthood was like. Is I actually grew up in a wine family, not a beer family. I didn't drink beer till late college. But my mom works and has worked for the last 25 years at Oliver Winery in Indiana, which sounds very strange that there's this winery in Indiana, but they make absolutely phenomenal wine. There was wine on our table when I was 12 years old, and has been every day, and it usually came out actually during dessert. We drank wine with dessert all the time, and so there's this very kind of visceral memory for me of having these really nice red wines with something sweet. I think there's just an amazing kind of counterbalance there. And growing up in Indiana, we had blackberries like growing wild and growing rampant on our property. And we would have blackberry cobbler for months. And just that connection with the wines is absolutely amazing. And I think one of the things that I love about this beer as well is it also kind of has a connection to my childhood. Because I remember very vividly waking up in the morning to the smell of coffee. And looking back on it, my parents drank absolutely horrid coffee. I mean, it was disgusting stuff, which I never realized until later in my life. But one of the things I loved about it was the smell. You can take the worst coffee and put it through a coffee maker, and there's something about that smell that's just absolutely amazing. And it took me years and years and years to figure out that the only way to get that flavor is to put a little sweetener in espresso. And that tastes like what coffee smells like. And that realization was just amazing to me. And it really kind of drove home, and that's what made me a coffee drinker. I don't drink the kind of gas station coffee black. I love, we have an espresso maker at home. And this beer was really a pursuit of that flavor. And so we actually take locally roasted coffee from Late for the Train up in Flagstaff. We get it fresh from there, and we take that coffee and we make a cold press. And every 200 gallons of this beer has about 1.5 gallons of cold pressed coffee from Late for the Train that is less than 2 days old that goes into that beer at the final step. And what that does is it really makes this beer taste like what coffee smells like. And I absolutely love that. And I always tell people, my dad growing up would always get a shot of espresso when we'd go out with dessert. And being a 10-year-old, I had no desire to drink that, but he always said that cheesecake or vanilla ice cream should always be accompanied by a shot of espresso. And I really feel like this beer with this dessert just really epitomizes that. So this is the Pan American Stout. It was actually named after, or named kind of, I won't say in honor of, but because of a friend of mine who roasted his own coffee, and they set off on a journey down the Pan American Highway in their VW bus, and 3 years later finally made it back to the U.S. And so in honor of that journey, and he actually roasted the first coffee for the first batch of this, and then proceeded to get in his van and drive away, so I couldn't get his coffee anymore, for this beer. And so that's why it's called the Pan American Stout. But I think it's just absolutely amazing for this course. So thank you and enjoy.
So, okay, so this piece is clearly about sex. That's hot. My eyes are drawn to the bang as well. It's also about death, because I don't think anyone can survive that.
Probably not.
But I think this was actually the easiest one for me to come up with a song for. It's really hilarious in a way. Like, these guys are so obsessed with their careers, but there's Marilyn, right? And what's more enticing
than Marilyn Monroe with a couple of tons of TNT. So this song that I'm doing with this, and it couples all with the dessert. The dessert is doing its best to blow your head off. The wine, this beer, holy shit. This song is called "Beat Me Senseless with Your Love," and it's actually the earliest song that I ever wrote that I will still play in public. And the lyric comes from something that my brother wrote. My brother's a writer when we were back in high school, and he came up with that tagline, "Beat me senseless with your love," and I thought it was funny, and so I turned it into this song, and I'll still pull it out from time to time. But it's
see past your obvious physical charms to the naughty fact of your previous life. There's no answer when I knock on your wooden head. I know there's more inside there than nicey nice. Well, some time ago when I first met you, I wondered if I would live to regret you. You drew me in like the passive magnet that you are, and now I'm stuck to you and your bizarre. When will you get the message to your brain? The only consequence of resistance is pain. Stop blowing kisses when you wanna get raw. Oh baby, keep me senseless with your love. When I was younger, I was happy just to chew the fat. Now I'm older, baby, and I need a little more than that. Give me butter, baby, don't give me no margarine. Everybody's got to sin a little now and then. When will you get the message to your brain? The only consequence of resistance is pain. Stop blowing kisses when you wanna get raw. Oh baby, beat me senseless with your love. When I knock on the door and the temperature's rising, put that little cat out and let me in. I'm your honey bee. You don't wanna mess with me. Look out, girl, you know, come that I could see you sink your teeth into this chest and take a bite out of this road we call romance. She doesn't live around the edges of my
telling me you're gonna come kayaking.
You're like an appetite, just tearing me apart. resistance is pain. Stop throwing kisses when you wanna get wrong. Oh baby, make me senseless with your love. We have a message to your brain. The only consequence of resistance is pain. Stop throwing kisses when you wanna get wrong. Oh baby, make me senseless with your love.
So before I let you go, I want to say thank you, and if you can, drop a couple dollars for our servers. They've been going out. And before Scott does his little spiel for the dessert, I want to again say thank you to him and for his staff for busting their ass and bringing over all the food over here. So a big shout out. You know, patronizing the people that are here is a really big deal. If you like something, take some of it home. They definitely appreciate that, and it's a long drive for these guys. So again, you know, whatever they can take away from this monetarily helps them pay for gas, at least. So definitely do that. And again, thank you so much for coming out. It's very humbling. So appreciate you guys. And with that, take it home, you guys.
Yeah, this is definitely the most painful dish I've ever cooked. I don't know if you picked blackberries in Oak Creek Canyon and prickly pear in Cornville, but the compote over the ice cream was blackberries picked up in Oak Creek Canyon and prickly pears picked in Cornville. So again, Native American is a little bit easier to do in Arizona than Irish or Eastern European.
So those were denied for, and it sounds like you almost did.
No. I wasn't worried about my life at any given point. It cost a lot. So yeah, anyway, that was, actually that was my pizza crust that made that fry bread. Just so you all know, I did add a little bit of sugar to it, just to sweeten it up a little bit. Thank you. That was Breyer's ice cream. We had talked about maybe doing our own ice cream, and when you're spending time picking berries and prickly berries, I'm trying to make ice cream. But the compote was blackberry and prickly pear, both picked locally, sweetened with just a little bit of agave nectar. I'm sure you guys have all picked blackberries before. Some are sweet, some are tart. I'm sure maybe you picked prickly pears. I'm sorry if you have. Some are sweet, some are tart, so it did need a little bit of agave nectar to sweeten it up. And yeah, it paired perfectly with coffee stout. Great tool. Thank you.
As I guess PPS, because I already said thank you and goodbye basically. If you can, for us, if you have not signed the poster that's in here, that's a very huge thing for us. Not only is it a cool kind of memory for us, but we hope to incorporate that into a final end of the year event where we use our posters like this as one of the pieces of art. So it's a true kind of communal work of art. So if you can sign here, that goes for everybody. Let me see. Scott, you gotta fucking sign it. Jesus! Come on! Sign it right now. Okay. But yeah, so if you can, please do that for us. And yeah, pick something up on your way out. That would be huge. So thank you guys again for coming out. I really, really appreciate it. And let's do it again.
Woo!
Sign it.